Welcome to the 1000 Nights and 1 Night. Now, when it was the 63rd night, she said, "It hath reached me, O auspicious king." The Nuzhat al-Zaman continued, "Know, O king, that Mu'ayyib was intendant of the public treasury during the caliphate of Omar bin al-Khattab, and it so befell him that he saw Omar's son and gave him a dirham out of the treasury. Thereupon quoth Mu'ayyib, I returned it to my own house, and while I was sitting there, behold, a messenger came to me from Omar, and I was afraid, and went to him, and when I came into his presence, in his hand was the dirham I had given his son. He said to me, Woe to thee, Mu'ayyib, I have found somewhat concerning thy soul. I asked, And what is that? And he answered, It is that thou hast shown thyself a foe to the followers of Mohammed, on whom be blessed salvation, in the matter of this germ, and thou wilt have to account for it on the resurrection day. And Omar also wrote to a letter to Abu Musa Ashara as follows: When these presents reach thee, give the people what is theirs, and remit to me the rest. And he did so. And when Othman succeeded to the caliphate, he wrote a letter to Abu Musa, who did his bidding, and sent him the tribute according to, and with it, Zayed. And when Zayed laid the tribute before Othman, the caliph's son came in and took a dirham, whereupon Zayed shed tears. Othman asked, Why weepest thou? And Zayed answered, I once brought Omar bin al-Khattab the like of this, and his son took a dirham, whereupon Omar bade snatch it from his hand. Now thy son hath taken of the tribute, yet I have seen none say aught to him or snatch the money from him. Then Othman cried, And where wilt thou find the like of Omar? Again, Zayd bin Aslam relates of his father that he said, I went out one night with Omar till we approached a blazing fire. Quoth Omar, O Aslam, I think these must be travelers who are suffering from the cold. Come, let us join them. So we walked on till we came to them, and behold, we found a woman who had lighted a fire under a cauldron, and by her side were 2 children, both a-wailing. Said Omar, Peace be with you, O folk of the light, for it wasn't repugnant to him to call them folk of fire. What aileth you? Said she, The cold and the night trouble us. He said, What aileth these little people that they weep? And she answered, They are hungry. He inquired, And what is in this cauldron? And she replied, It is what I quiet them with. All Allah will question Omar bin al-Khattab of them on the day of doom. He said, And what should Omar know of their case? Why, then rejoined she, should he manage people's affairs and yet be unmindful of them? Thereupon Omar turned to me, and continued Aslam, and cried, Come with us. So we set off running till we reached the pay department of his treasury, where he took out a sack containing flour and a pot holding fat, and said to me, Load these on my back. Quoth I, O Commander of the Faithful, I will carry them for thee. He rejoined, Wilt thou bear my load for me on the day of resurrection? So I put the things on his back, and we set off running till we threw down the sack hard by her. Then he took out some of the flour and put it in the cauldron, and said to the woman, Leave it to me. And he began blowing the fire into the cauldron. Now he was a long-bearded man, and I saw the smoke issuing from between the hairs of his beard, till the flour was cooked, when he took out some of the fat and threw it in, and said to the woman, Feed them while I cool it for them. So they fell to eating till they had eaten their fill, and he left the rest with her. Then he turned to me and said, O Aslam, I see it was indeed hunger made them weep, and I am glad I did not go away ere I found out the cause of the light I saw. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased to say her permitted say. And when it was the 64th night, she said, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that Nuzhat al-Zaman continued. It is related that Omar passed by the flock of sheep kept by the Mameluke, and asked him to sell him a sheep. He answered, They are not mine. Thou art the man I sought, said Omar, and bought him and freed him, whereupon the slave exclaimed, O Allah, as thou hast bestowed on me the lesser emancipation, so vouchsafe me the greater. It is also said that Omar bin al-Khattab was wont to give his servants sweet milk, and himself eat coarse fare, and to clothe them softly, and to wear rough clothes. He rendered to all men their due, and exceeded in his giving to them. He once gave a man 4,000 dirhams, and added thereto 1,000, wherefore it is said to him, What dost thou not increase to thy son as thou increasest to this man? And he answered, This man's father stood firm at the battle day of Ohad. Al-Hasan relates that Omar came back from the foray with much money, and that Hassif approached him and said, O commander of the faithful, the due of kinship. O Hassaf, replied him, Verily, Allah hath enjoined us to satisfy dues of kinship, but not with the monies of the true believers. Indeed, thou pleasest thy family, but thou angerest thy father. And she went away trailing her skirts. The son of Omar said, I implored the Lord to show me my father 1 year after his death, till at last I saw him weeping the sweat from his brow, and asked him, How is it with thee, O father? And he answered, But for my Lord's mercy, thy father surely had perished. Then said Nuzhat al-Zaman, Hear, O auspicious king, the second division of the first chapter of the instances of the followers of the apostle of the holy men. Saith al-Hasan al-Basri, Not a soul of the sons of Adam goeth forth of the world without regretting 3 things: failure to enjoy what he hath amassed, failure to compass what he hoped, and failure to provide himself with sufficient viticum for that whereto he goeth. It was said to the Sufyan, Can a man be religious and yet possess wealth? He replied, Yes. So he be patient when grieved, and be thankful when he hath received. Abdullah bin Shaddad, being about to die, sent for his son Mohammed, and admonished him, saying, O my son, I see the summoner of death summoning me, and so I charge thee to fear Allah both in public and private, to praise Allah, and to be soothfast in thy speech, for such praise bringeth increase of prosperity, and piety in itself to the best of provisions for the next world. Even as saith one of the poets, I see not happiness lies in gathering gold. The man most pious is man's happiest. In truth, the fear of God is best of stores, and God shall make the pious choicely blessed. Then quoth Nuzhat al-Zaman, Let the king also give ear to these notes from the second section of the first chapter. He asked her, And what be they? And she answered, When Omar bin Abd al-Aziz succeeded the caliphate, he went to his household, and laying hands on all that was in their hold, and put it into the public treasury. So the Banu Umayyah flew for aid to his father's sister Fatima, daughter of Marwan, and she said to him, saying, I must needs speak to thee. So she came to him by night, and when he had made her alight from her breast and sit down, he said, O aunt, it is for thee to speak first, since thou hast something to say, and to ask. Tell me, then, what thou wouldest with me. Replied she, O commander of the faithful, it is thine to speak first, for thy judgment perceiveth that which is hidden from intelligence of others. Then said Omar, Of a verity, Allah Almighty sent Mohammed as a blessing to some, and a bane to others, and he elected for him those with him, and commissioned him as his apostles, and took him to himself. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased saying her permitted say. Now, when it was the 65th night, she said, It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that Nuzhat al-Zaman continued thus. Said Omar, Verily, Allah commissioned at his apostle Muhammad, upon whom he had the benediction of Allah and his salvation, for a blessing to some and a bane to others, and he elected for them those with him, and took him to himself, leaving the people a stream wherefore they might drink. After him, Abu Bakr, the truth-teller, became caliph, and he left the river as it was, doing what was pleasing to Allah. Then arose Omar, and worked a work, and strove in holy war and strife, whereof none might do the like. But when Othman arose to power, he diverted a streamlet from the stream, and Mu'awai in his turn diverted from it several streamlets, and without ceasing in like manner Yazid and the Banu Marwan, such as Abd al-Malik, and the main course dried up, till rule devolved upon me, and now I am minded to restore the stream to its normal condition. When Fatima heard this, she said, I came wishing only to speak and to confer with thee, but if this be thy word, I have nothing to say to thee. Then she returned to the Umayyads and said to them, Now, take ye the consequences of your act, when ye allied yourself by marriage with Omar bin al-Khattab. And it is also said that when Omar was about to die, he gathered his children round him, and Maslamah bin Abd al-Malik said to him, O Prince of the Faithful, how wilt thou leave thy children paupers, and thou thy protector? None can hinder thee in thy lifetime from giving them what will suffice them without of the treasury, and this indeed were better than leaving the good work to him who shall rule after thee. Omar looked at him with a look of wrath and wonder, and presently replied, O Maslamah, I have defended them from this sin all the days of my life, and shall I make them miserable after my death? Of a truth, my sons are like other men, either obedient to Almighty Allah, who will prosper them, or disobedient, and I will not help them in their disobedience. Know, O Maslamah, that I was present, even as thou, when such as one of the sons of Marwan was buried, and I fell asleep by him, and saw him in a dream given over to one of the punishments of Allah, to whom be honor and glory. This terrified me and made me tremble, and I vowed to Allah that if I ever came to power, I would not do such deeds as the dead man had done. I have striven to fulfill this vow all the length of my life, and I hope to die in the mercy of my Lord. Quoth Maslamah, a certain man died, and I was present at his burial, and when all was over I fell asleep, and I saw him as a sleeper seeth a dream, walking in a garden of flowing waters, clad in white clothes. He came up to me and said, O Maslamah, it is for the like of this that the ruler should rule. Many are the instances of this kind, and quoth one of the men of authority, I used to milk the ewes in the caliphate of Omar bin Abd al-Aziz, and one day I met a shepherd, among whose sheep I saw a wolf or wolves. I thought them to be dogs, for I had never seen wolves, so I asked, What dost thou with these dogs? They are not dogs, but wolves, answered the shepherd. Quoth I, Can wolves be with sheep and not hurt them? Quoth he, When the head is whole, the body is whole. Omar bin Abd al-Aziz once preached from a pulpit of clay, and after praising and glorifying Allah Almighty, said 3 words as follows, O folk, make clean your innermost heart, that your outward lives may be clean to your brethren, and abstain ye from the things of the world. Know that between us and Adam there is no one alive among the dead. Dead are Abd al-Malik, and those who forward him, and Omar also shall die, and those who forewent him. Ask Maslamah, O Commander of the Faithful, as we sit a pillow behind thee, wilt thou lean on it a little while? But Omar answered, I fear lest it be a fault about my neck on resurrection day. Then he gasped with the death rattle, and fell back in faint, whereupon Fatima cried out and saying, Ho, Maryam! Ho, Muzahim! Ho, such an one! Look to this man! And she began to pour water on him, weeping till he revived from his swoon, and seeing her in tears, said to her, What causeth thee to weep, O Fatima? She replied, O Commander of the Faithful, I saw thee lying prostrate before us, and thought of thy prostration and death before Almighty Allah, of thy departure from the world, and of thy separation from us. This is what made me weep. Answered he, Enough, O Fatima, for indeed thou exceedest. Then he would have risen, but fell down, and Fatima strained to her, and said, "Thou art to me as my father and my mother, O commander of the faithful. We cannot speak to thee all of this." Then quote Nuzhat al-Zaman to her brother Sharrkan and the four Qazis. Here ended the second section of the first chapter. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased to say her permitted say. She said, "It hath reached me, O auspicious king, that Nuzhat al-Zaman said to her brother Sharrkan and the four Qazis." Here ended the second section of the first chapter. And it so happened that Omar bin Abd al-Aziz wrote to the people of the festival of Mecca as follows: "I call Allah to witness in the holy month, in the holy city, and on the day of the greater pilgrimage, that I am innocent of your oppression and of his wrongs that doth wrong you, in that I have neither commanded this nor proposed it, neither hath any report of aught thereof hitherto reached me, nor have I compassed any knowledge thereof. And I trust that a cause for pardon will be found in that none hath authority from me to oppress any man. For I assuredly be questioned concerning every one oppressed. And if any of my officers swerve from the right and act otherwise than the holy book and the traditions of the apostles do authorize, obey him not, so that he may return to the way of the righteous." He said also, "Allah accept of him. I do not wish to be relieved from death because of the supreme thing for which the true believer is rewarded." Quoth one of the authority, "I went to the prince of the faithful, Omar bin Abd al-Aziz, who was the caliph, and saw before him 12 dirhams, which he ordered for deposit in the public treasury. So I said to him, O commander of the faithful, thou impoverishest thy children, and reducest them to beggary, having nothing whereon to live, and thou wouldest appoint somewhat by them to those who are poor of the people of thy house. It were well. Draw near to me, answered he. So I drew near to him, and he said, None as for thy saying, thou beggarest thy children, provide for them and for the poor of thy household. It is without reason. For Allah of a truth will replace me to my children and to the poor of my house, and he will be their guardian. Verily, they are like other men. He who feareth Allah, right soon will Allah provide for him happy issue. And he that is addicted to sins, I will not uphold him in his sin against Allah. Then he summoned his sons, who numbered 12, and when he beheld them, his eyes dropped tears, and presently he said to them, Your father is between two things. Either you will be well-to-do, and your parent will enter the fire, or ye will be poor, and your parent will enter paradise. And your father's entry into paradise is lifer to him, that ye should do well-to-do. So arise, and go to Allah, be your helper, for to him I commit your affair. Khalid bin Safwan, said Yusuf bin Omar, accompanied me to Hisham bin Abd al-Malik, and as I met him, he was coming forth with his kinsmen in attendance. He lighted a tent and was pitched for him. When the people had taken their seats, I came up to the side of the carpet, whereupon he sat, reclining, and looked at him, and waiting till my eyes met his eyes, bespoke him, Thus may Allah fulfill his bounty to thee, O Commander of the Faithful. I have an admonition for thee, which hath come down to us from the history of the kings preceding thee. At this, he sat up whereas he had been reclining, and said to me, Bring what thou hast, O son of Safwan. Quoth I, O Commander of the Faithful, one of the kings before thee went forth in a time before this, thy time, to this very country, and said to his companions, Saw you ever any state like mine, and say me, hath such case been given to any man, even as it hath been given unto thee, or me? Now, there was with a man of those who survived to bear testimony to truth, upholders of the right, and wayfarers in its highway, and he said to them, O king, thou askest of a grave matter. Wilt thou give me leave to answer? Yes, replied the king. And the other said, Dost thou judge thy present state to be short-lasting or everlasting? It is a temporary, replied the king. How then, rejoined the man, do I see thee exulting in that which thou wilt enjoy a little while, and whereof thou wilt be questioned for a long while, and the rendering of an account whereof thou shalt be a pledge which is pawned? Quoth the king, Whither shall I flee, and what must I seek for me? That thou abide in thy kingship, replied the other, or else robe thee in rags, and apply thyself to obey Almighty Allah thy Lord until thine appointed hour. I will come to thee again at daybreak. Khalid bin Safwan further relates that the man knocked at the door at dawn, and behold, the king had put off his crown and resolved to become an anchorite for the stress of his exhortation. When Hisham bin Abd al-Malik heard this, he wept till his beard was wet, and bidding his right apparel he put off, shut himself up in his palace. Then the grandees and dependents came to Khalid and said, What is this thou hast done with the commander of the faithful? Thou hast troubled his pleasure and disturbed his life. Then quoth Nuzhat al-Zaman, addressing herself to Sharrkan, How many instances of admonition are there not in this chapter? Of a truth, I cannot report all appertaining to this head in a single sitting. And Shahrazad perceived the dawn of the day, and ceased to say her permitted say. And so do I cease my say for this day, until it be morrow.